You're listening to Data Center Therapy. Please take a number, and an engineer will be right with you. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Data Center Therapy, a podcast from IVOXY Consulting that talks all things IT with a healthy dose of empathy. I'm your host, Matt Yette, and I'm thirsty. And joining me today is my co-host, Mr. Matt Cozzolino. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing, Mr. Yette?
I'm great. I'm really excited, too, because we are welcoming back to the pod, not to IVOXY, unfortunately, an IVOXY alumnus, though.
Alumnus,
drum roll,
I like
please,
that.
Mr. Kris Lamet. Kris, welcome back. How are you?
Thank you, gentlemen. I am doing really well, and I'm super excited to be here with you guys. So
we're super happy to have you back on the pod. In that honor, I think we have a first. What, this is episode 76, I think, of Data Center Therapy, 77 maybe?
Yeah, 76, yeah.
And for the first time ever, and I think if you're under 21, you should turn off your headphones right now, because we're going to crack a beer in Chris's honor.
Earmuffs.
A first on DCT. So here we go, right? Oh, and then.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, there you go, Yette.
That is a tall boy, too, a 16-ouncer. This is, and that's not a beer podcast, but this is Mother Earth's Nitro Cali Creamin'. So, it is a vanilla cream ale on nitro. It is the smoothest thing you've ever poured down your gullet, I promise.
I do like some nitro beers. That's a good one.
You said it was a vanilla cream.
Vanilla cream ale.
Okay.
And so, people who aren't, you can't see this, but it is a gorgeous, golden amber. It's got a nice, probably inch and a half thick nitro head on it, and it's so smooth. It's so easy to drink. And I may have procured split a case with a friend of mine from a local, the Hop and Hound dog friendly beer garden there. And Eric is a friend of ours, and great place for beers and dogs if you're into that too. So, Kris, this is the first, man. We wanted to
cheers, gentlemen. Cheers. And I'm actually drinking I'm drinking vanilla as well. I've got a locust cider vanilla bean. So I'm not a beer guy, but I do like the ciders. And yeah, this is a vanilla bean. It's unique. I haven't had anything quite like this before.
I kind of want to go springtime and say I'm drinking a PBR, but no. For me, it's a Legion Immortal for me. So.
Oh, that's a double IPA.
Is it? It says just single IPA.
Oh, I thought the Immortals were an Imperial.
Sure. I don't know. It was in the Costco pack, man.
I don't know if
beer
we're
flavored.
Late enough for you to be dipping into that one.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Kris, if you ever do make your way back to IVOXY proper, we'll break out the hard stuff. I think for now, ciders and beers are appropriate, I guess, for the occasion.
Yes, we'll stick with ciders and beers for now.
So you departed IVOXY at this point. What was it, about 2 years ago? Maybe at this point, maybe not quite.
No, not even close. Actually, it's
3 months or something.
Yeah. It's only felt that long. My goodness.
It was actually, I think, June of last year that I left. So it really hasn't been all that long, and I've made a couple of interesting changes in the time since we've met last. So I left IVOXY to pursue a company called Datadog. They actually make some pretty cool stuff. And fantastic company, and an opportunity opened up at NetApp that I couldn't turn down. It was an opportunity to come and do stuff like this and work with people in the Northwest that I really like. So it's been a really, really neat experience so far, getting to see familiar friends and faces, familiar friends and being able to reconnect with people. So I'm super excited about this. In fact, day before yesterday, we had our partner academy in Hillsborough at Top Golf, and we had some pretty good representation from the IVOXY folks. So it was super great to see those guys. So I'm just super excited to be here with NetApp and to be able to work with you guys.
I think it's been kind of cool that I've already pinged you about some random NetApp stuff while I'm out doing installs. Like, hey, I know this guy. Who can I ask?
Have abused that. I might have abused that privilege, being quite honest. I was beating him up pretty good a couple of weeks ago, and He's probably thinking, oh, maybe I made a mistake here. Yeah, he's all over me.
We get the random questions, and when we're gonna ask them,
Well,
they're gonna be.
Well, it's
They're gonna be
funny.
good
So
ones.
you're the technical partner. You're the TPM with
Yeah.
NetApp, which
Yep.
means Matt and Kaz and I, we have an issue with NetApp, whether it be a technical question and maybe it's not like a pre-sales opportunity. It's just a technical question. We don't really know where to go. There might not be the right path that we go to. Kris is the catch-all in terms of that. And what I'm excited about is it's not like NetApp's always had this role, and I've actually worked well with whoever's been in that role. But NetApp's one of those companies that really surprises me because, and I'm gonna go there. You can look at NetApp and not know anything about it and say, oh, they're legacy, they're big blue, they're old hat, they're this and that. And yet here this company's been that's basically created the waffle file system, the snapshot that everybody loves. It's all immutable and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, that's been NetApp from day one.
Yep.
Back in the 90s, and they've managed to maintain a level of innovation that maybe they have no business being. You think they're a ship, and steering the ship and being
For
able
as big
to
as they
agile.
are, I've seen them pivot
Right.
pretty good, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And you could argue, and they probably would win that argument, that they probably have the most robust portfolio of cloud technologies out of any of the. I mean, so you'd think
Yeah.
startups would be eating their lunch left and right on the new technologies. It's just not the case.
No.
Yeah.
That being said, also, you're used to seeing sometimes companies start up, get hot, and then, like that favorite restaurant of yours that just eventually closes, or they shift chefs and it's just never quite as good. You just kind of long for those old days. And yet NetApp seems to hold on to a pretty talented core of people. And that's kind of unusual too. And that is, Kris is a great example of that in terms of I'm excited for him to be in that position because I will never, not that I ever had real issues getting in touch with competent people, but knowing that Kris is an IVOXY alumnus, maybe we get a little favoritism. Kris, what do you think?
White gloves all the way around. It's
There we
just
go.
like IVOXY. Give the white glove service, and
Everyone gets a pair. Yeah.
everybody.
You get those
yeah.
calls from those other partners, though. You feel free to, lose connection on that.
Sorry, I'm going through a tunnel. I can't hear you right now. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's the fun
Okay.
thing is
Yeah.
working as a customer. Before I joined IVOXY, I was a customer. I was a very happy IVOXY customer, and I worked with other partners as well, and I worked with other technologies. So, it's certainly opened me up to I guess all of those opportunities to work with different folks. So.
So I know one of the things, Kris, that maybe push you in the direction for your career is the ability to focus deeply on technology. Where IVOXY, and I thought you were outstanding, but admittedly, you had to be relied on to be super deep on a lot of stuff and talking about being spread thin. Yeah, and it is a challenge that we all battle with every day. I look at NetApp though, and you think, storage company, okay, pretty narrow.
No.
And especially when it comes to the cloud, how are you feeling? Are you drowning? Are you overwhelmed? Or you feel like you're settling in? I mean, it's all the core same base technology, at least, right? At least the concepts are all unified from that standpoint.
Storage over a network, right?
Right. But so how does that feel?
Yeah, it's an interesting world. I think going to your comment about NetApp being that company that people perceive as legacy, I continue to hear that, and yet the irony of it is that NetApp really is, like, you name a cutting edge technology and NetApp is involved with it. If you look at what we're doing with containers and Kubernetes, and now with the cloud, just absolutely amazing capabilities in the cloud. And a big focus for NetApp is, so they've been talking about the data fabric for years, to the point that people are like, what is like this? Just keep hearing data fabric, but it really is a thing. And as NetApp has moved into the cloud and recognized that customers' data is their business, and if without that data, they don't have a business, and people are going to have that in the data center, and they're going to have that in the cloud, and there are various reasons that people are going to want to bounce around between those different locations, whether it's to be able to scale, whether it's to be able to have disaster recovery capabilities, whatever it is. There's a need to take advantage of different things to run a business. And NetApp has a ton of products, to the point that I haven't actually counted all of the products, but I was told 46 products in the NetApp portfolio. And that's huge, absolutely huge. And I think it'd be difficult for anybody really to recognize any, I guess, issue and recognize immediately the particular solution that NetApp may have available. And I think that part of the issue there is some of our competitors are just marketing geniuses, and NetApp not so good at marketing how awesome they are. So and I'm hoping some of that changes. And I think it's one of those things that when the rubber hits the road, NetApp can do it. And that's really what excited me and brought me to NetApp was just the capabilities and knowing that this isn't a one-trick pony. This is a company that gets that technology evolves and stays with it through that and eases that and tries to simplify that through every bit of it. You look at products like our Cloud Manager, which is just drag drop. Our CDM Rakehi this morning did a presentation where it was 3 minutes, and he had a demonstration running, and he was replicating from data center A to data center B. For a salesperson to be able to pull up something like that and do something in click go is just impressive. So
right. I think NetApp is the one product vendor that actually you can say that I can leverage NetApp storage in AWS and Azure, right? And have it be actual data served off of a NetApp, which from a consumer point of view means that I don't have to do these things where I'm shoving data into a different product to get it over to here, and then I have to figure out how to convert it. I can keep it all on my one device and just share it amongst those.
It's basically like taking down that 6-foot fence. That boundary is gone. That you don't have to leap over it or convert or do anything between. And that's such a challenge for everybody who has cloud on the mind, on the horizon. And I think everybody does to some extent, whether that's whole hog, whether that's forklift, whether that's let's just ease in, go hybrid and see where it works. Ultimately, I think of these cloud vendors, you could look at Amazon. Yeah, ingest is free. It's easy. It's easy to put new things into it, but to move existing things into it is a whole nother ball game. And like Kris said, the fabric is the point. And just taking a basketball and throwing it over the fence, and now it lands over there. It needs to be thrown back if you want to do that. You can't just walk it through. And that whole fabric, basically getting a baseline where, what is the thing? Data, that is the thing. And if you are completely siloed one way or the other, it's not just owning your data, it's being able to move your data freely at that point. I think that's where the fabric comes in.
Different data behaves differently, right?
Yeah.
So like my share folders for my users, my traditional share folders is different than my VM data or my VMDKs, right?
Yep, absolutely. Which is different than imaging from a medical industry. Yeah, it's all very different.
So one of the things that I see, Kris, is I've got some customers that maybe a school. They've got to keep a lot of data around for a long time. That's just not going to be touched. It's strictly compliance. It is not, not workflow related whatsoever. And something like that I love because Fabric Pool, right?
Yeah.
Fabric Pool is basically tying up a NetApp volume with an S3 or blob bucket on the back end. So that does not involve NetApp technology in the cloud whatsoever, right? Theoretically.
Yeah, correct. With being able to tier to an S3 bucket, we can really go anywhere, and that could be another data center where you're able to consume S3. It could be any of the hyperscalers. So you've absolutely got flexibility there. That's pretty cool stuff. And the way that works, just to describe the Fabric Pool, as you have data that's sitting on your primary storage, and let's say that's an all-flash platform, that's valuable disk, that's valuable compute cycles, or valuable
air quotes expensive disk, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you start filling that whole thing up with a bunch of images, or maybe that holiday party that from 4 years ago that nobody has touched in years. That stuff consumes your space, and that's an opportunity lost for other data. So with the Fabric pool, it senses that data hasn't been accessed in whatever the configured time is, and then bumps that up to the cloud. And when you try to consume it again, it'll pull it back and bring
You
it.
just triggered me, Kris. My last job, we had NetApp. I was a NetApp customer and an IVOXY customer prior to being an IVOXY employee and NetApp partner. And we had a Canadian office branch, and all of our sites had effectively storage and compute and all this. And the Canadian office liked to do company picnics. And they like to take pictures, and they like to store that on my expensive NetApp. And I was not too pleased. And I remember going at it pretty with a chainsaw a little bit, and kind of just, what was it? Dir tree size or something. One of those Microsoft utilities where you point it at your share and it tells you what kind of files. And I just saw that JPEG color just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and my blood pressure was rising with that. And they were all duplicates too. Now I know dedupe and all of this, but at the same time, it was a Windows file server, so we were seeing it on the front end, and it was driving me bananas. Anyway, sorry. Yes, that would have been nice for an auto writer rule to say any of this junk, send it up immediately. Don't even hold on to it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things you mentioned, the S3 as a tiering location. That's when I personally first realized S3 was what it was and how it worked. There was a lot of like, wow, that's really cool. Where can I use it? Because I know in our space and our customers, most of them don't have an application they can rewrite to leverage S3. So this then becomes the first time I'm like, okay, so now here's something consumable and usable for day-to-day operations for engineers in an environment. Let's back this with some S3. And that might be one of the other ones. Is S3 isn't it's a protocol, and S3 is more akin to NFS, not a storage place, right? So, that was one of the cool ones I saw about NetApp.
What I struggle with, Kris, is I find that, again, like Matt said, there's a lot of different types of data. I would say you've got VSI, right? Virtual server infrastructure. You've got SQL, and then there's your unstructured. I think the big three. Virtual, though, that's kind of the elephant in the room. I feel like there are a lot more solutions for unstructured, right? Because file access can be a lot looser in terms of the protocols and shifting it around. But a virtual server needs a hypervisor to connect up to, and then the underlying storage. NetApp, how does NetApp see that? Because right now, unless I have VMware on AWS, VMware Cloud on AWS, right? Which
even then you're using vSAN.
I picked on it before, right? It's not cloud in terms of how you think you're consuming cloud. You're basically renting space. It's like you might as well do a colo. I could make that argument. I can make that argument financially too. But outside of that, if you're going to use a hyperscaler natively, there's you're sitting there with your VMware hypervisor or even Hyper-V. You're not vMotioning your VM up there. It's just not happening. Does NetApp enable you to translate between hyperscalers, hypervisors?
Yeah. So from a NetApp perspective, we're now in all of the clouds. So you can get native.
All the clouds.
All the clouds. Yeah. Just look up, Matt. Yeah. So we're in AWS, Azure, GCP. We've got a really exciting offering right now AWS has the offering because it's actually owned by AWS, but they have a technology now called FSxN, and that is literally NetApp storage that AWS owns, and it is
to the point I can set up like a snap mirror between my on-prem and that one, like leveraging that functionality.
That is exactly what you can do. Yeah.
Nice.
So if you take that functionality and then you take your VMware Cloud and your VMware on-prem, now you can take your data that's on your NetApp that's running in VMware, and you can do a snap mirror of that data to to the cloud and have it available there as something that you can just quickly consume within your VMware Cloud instance and manage that through your vCenter as you would any other data center that you'd operate. So I think from lowering the friction of getting into this, I think this is what people are waiting for. And I think we've seen a lot of people just be apprehensive to make any move to the cloud because they don't want to refactor, they don't want to go through all those steps. And to not have to do that and to already know the technology that you are replicating your data into, that's huge. That's powerful. And to take on a cloud initiative, would normally mean you need to retrain all of your staff, you need to redesign all of your systems and processes, and with the capability of having the same in the cloud that you have on the prem and not being tied to any hyperscaler, to be able to do migrations, to do vMotion from my cloud from my private cloud to the public cloud, from my data center to AWS. That's huge. And I think about companies that, small businesses that don't have that second location to have a good DR capability. They're often doing just backups and shipping those offsite. Well, if
it's a start, but
it's a start, and I
Backup
wouldn't
is
tell.
not DR.
No, backup is not DR.
No, thank you. Yes, it is not DR. It is an insurance policy, and if I think people need to look at it that way. You need to be able to bring your data back as quickly as possible. Business doesn't have time to wait for pulling back tapes and rehydrating data or all the other things. So
that all important RTO number, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you get to the point of not even having a DR conversation and expanding that to business continuity. How do we just keep things highly available? How do we just run business in a way that is easy and painless and offers that flexibility that when a site goes down, it isn't. We're not calling everybody and initiating the DR sequence. It's hey guys, data center A has gone down. We're in data center B now. And
that's when we talk about network gear, when we talk about firewalls and switches and whatnot. I routinely talk to customers and I say we want to design this so when X breaks and it wakes you up in the middle of the night because you get that page, by the time you've logged in to look at it, it resolved itself because you've got that redundancy built. And I think now with storage being just the one component of it, compute being the other, network, and how do we get users to that storage, to that compute, being the other piece, that it's already been more than just a single point product, but now here's an easy way to consume that data from point A to point B, right?
Yeah. I think
so. One thing that comes to mind, Kris, is I know that, and it was something that I hadn't heard about until Rubrik of all people or all places, mentioned, was one of the things in that conversion process is one of the things that they do is they back up, and you can push it out to the cloud. But then from that archive, you can convert from that bucket into an actual native Azure or AWS VM.
Yeah.
And that was always, hey, as Rubrik's using spot instances. And from what I gathered at the time was, it's kind of an auction-based leftover compute instances that you can peel off and pick up at cheaper prices. NetApp bought Spot, what, about a year ago? Something like that, maybe?
I think it's been a little bit longer than that, but yeah. It's a fairly recent acquisition, and it was one that was well known on its own, and
it's one of the 46.
It is, yeah. Well, and it's interesting because Spot is not a single solution. There's multiple components to that, and there's some pretty neat stuff. And I'll be honest, I've been running around like a chicken with my head cut off, trying to absorb everything, and
the two Matts pouncing on him for all the help.
Yeah, I couldn't speak in depth at all of the capabilities there, but really, if you are running cloud workloads, the Spot solution, it's actually free. It kind of pays you, so it's kind of like a reverse cost. So the way that whole system works is it identifies places that opportunities to save money, and your bill for that service is a percentage of the money that you've saved. So it's a win-win-win. It's pretty exciting stuff.
Easy to do. But is it just containers that it works on, or is it any compute workload?
It is any EC2. So there are some really cool things for container workloads. So there's
but it's EC2 is okay.
Yeah. Now Ocean adds in the capability of also looking at the at your individual containerized workloads and can apply new workloads, tear things down, build them back up into those spot instances. And I guess maybe to back up a step on what all this means for folks that maybe aren't as familiar with the way that AWS does some of this stuff. There's different levels of I guess service offerings from the provider. So if you want a dedicated instance that is yours and it will always be yours and no one else can use it and they can't take it away, you're going to pay more money for that. If you have something that has a limited time offering, it's spare cycles that are available, it'll take advantage of those and allow you to
use
move
those
things
kind of
around.
Dynamically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I like your concept of it paying you or it being a net negative in terms of cost, and that's the first thing I picked up off NetApp's offerings for storage, because my first thought, and this was back years ago, and you're thinking about, okay, how are storage vendors going to compete online and at least in infrastructure as a service? Because hey, I'll spin up an AWS VM and put it on Elastic Block, and that's the way it goes. But NetApp also then, they've been in storage for a little bit, and they've got efficiencies, and they've got analytics and all of that kind of stuff in terms of knowing how to run a storage file system. And you can actually purchase or end up using that same amount of storage on a NetApp, but you're going to end up needing less of it because of NetApp's efficiencies and the performance and all of that. And therefore, you can say, look, you can effectively, even though you are paying NetApp and not just AWS, you're paying NetApp less than you would pay AWS through the same. Or now you're paying AWS through the marketplace or IVOXY, and then you end up buying less than you actually
but there's also
would have needed.
Better functionality there, because you can mirror, you can tier, you can move stuff around east and west, ingress, egress.
Right. Because you don't have an AWS storage platform on site, but you do have ONTAP. Right. Yeah. That makes good sense.
Yeah. So interestingly, they're it's not just a marketplace offering. It's actually a cloud native offering now from AWS. So when you're selecting your storage, you have the capability of choosing something other than EBS and electing to use FSXN. So
and it's not just a NetApp thing, although NetApp's taking advantage of it. But you talk about drinking from a fire hose at NetApp or wherever, Kris, and the idea of keeping up with everything cloud-wise, let alone one hyperscaler, let alone more than one. At the same time, I feel like I'm not dumb and I'm not lazy for not being up to date from day to day on exactly what offerings there are. I mean, even if you are,
I don't have time for that.
But who has time for it is really the point in terms of, I'll go on and I'll look for documentation on how to do X and realize that, that was a week ago, man. It's different now. Keep up. And that's been really rough to stay on. And that's not specific to NetApp. It's just
everyone.
It's technology.
Yeah, it really is.
Things evolve quick.
And it's tough because we're historically used to kind of centering around the 800-pound gorilla in the room for one way or another. I mean, VMware is the hypervisor of choice. It got there for good reason. Don't get me wrong. It's not American Idol. It's not the thing that everybody watches. Yeah, it still sucks. Sorry to any American Idol fans out there. It's there for good reason. But at the same time, it goes to automation, right? How many automation technologies are there? You couldn't list 5% of them if I gave you an hour to talk about them all. And yet, when you want support on something like that, or you want to go to the community and say, has anybody seen this before? You very well may be the only person who's ever seen that issue, because it's so thin in terms of everybody's kind of rolling their own and doing their own thing. And so that's been my challenge, at least from a cloud standpoint, is there's 18 million ways to do it. Pick one. And the most popular one, 6 people are doing it. instead of 2 like everything else. That's really the tough part that I've run into.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of market saturation and a lot of niche players that come in and try to tackle a component of any of these things, or a lot of them are just trying to find where the where's the itch, and they're going to go scratch it, and then those things end up being consumed by the larger players. They're like, yes, that's a great idea, we'll do that too.
So what have you been up to personally, Kris? You been up to anything fun? I mean, I know that we all have hung out in the past together. So what's new with you in that? I mean, if it's not work related, it's tough to get in touch with anybody. Even though I think we're finally transitioning out of that phase right now. But yeah, we've missed you. What's new?
Well, I'm trying to keep myself busy in different ways. So I think last time we talked, I think we were talking about home automation, and at the time that we talked, I was using Samsung SmartThings, and
you had an ecosystem you were built into, I think. Yeah.
I did, and I've recently gone down the path of actually deploying a Home Assistant server and beginning to get all of that going. So
there we go.
Yes. Very exciting stuff, and oh my gosh, so capable, so cool.
That project over the last 18 months has been, I feel like I got on the wave right as they were really turning a corner in terms of it being a hacky project to a thing.
Now it's actually really
really well organized too. And I've done pull requests, I've done all kinds of things that get merged in, and it's fantastic. And what technology are you using, Kris? Are you doing Z-Wave or Zigbee or HomeKit or?
I've got it's mostly Z-Wave.
Z-Wave, okay.
Yeah.
And you like that?
Sorry?
So I'm asking both of you this. You are happy with Z-Wave?
Yes.
Over what? Over Wi-Fi?
Yeah,
over
Wi-Fi.
Zigbee?
Home
over
kit.
Wi-Fi, absolutely. Yeah.
I just feel like
Absolutely.
with Wi-Fi, at least it's visible. There's an IP. Hey, ping, 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 hey.
Yeah.
And that's not perfect. Don't get me wrong, because I get frustrated and I want to take my HomePod and basically spike it like a football from time to time. But Z-Wave is like, we got this. Don't worry about it. Shut up. Wire network. Well,
we've
just
talked
wait.
about that a little bit. And the Z-Wave thing is now much, much, much better than it was when OG Home Assistant was a thing.
Well, I'm just thinking if we end up moving or whatever another house, the question is, do you take your smart stuff or do you sell it? I think, Kris, you went through this.
I did.
And no, I will not be support for any eventual purchaser of a house that myself. But at the same time, does it impact the sale? Does it make the listing more attractive to say 80% of the switches in this house are smart? Because as you're advertising it, you have to say, doesn't come with these switches if you're going to take those guys with you. And it might be worth it to me to buy all new so I don't have to go take the screwdriver out and get them out of there at this point. But if I was to buy new, I guess that's the thing. If I was to start from scratch, would I buy Z-Wave switches? Should I buy Z-Wave switches?
So the one thing, when I was going down this path, at the time I was working cybersecurity, and so from that perspective, I don't want my whole home to become a botnet and
endpoints that start
so it was a conscious decision about these devices aren't going to be peeking into any of my other stuff. They have no capability of doing so, and for that I feel comfortable. There's also the capability of mesh network, and if you have a wireless capability of doing something like that, that's great, but I think most don't. But Z-Wave will they will find their closest neighbor and communicate through that neighbor if they don't have a direct access otherwise. So, and
there's not that hours-long healing process that I've read about.
There is, but that's what I think the Z-Wave. Like I use Z-Wave to MQTT for mine.
Yeah, which is
the way to do it now, right? And I think that they've handled that healing process a lot better than there used to be. And I also think there was another step forward on the Z-Wave protocol that might be doing some other stuff.
Is that mostly a battery thing also? That's in terms of mains, it's not so much a thing.
Well, like the things that are hardwired are repeaters for your Z-Wave.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. And they don't take long to establish what their story is.
No.
Right. So I also looked, I saw somebody post something where my thing was, well, my server's in my garage. That's where my Z-Wave network, my USB stick is. But I've also found now there's a library or whatever where you can actually have Pi, 0W, whatever, little tiny computer with a Z-Wave dongle hanging off of it that you can effectively, because of MQTT, can effectively turn that into a remote serial device. And you can have more than one, I guess, because they all just mesh. But you can actually put them in a centralized location if your home server is not in a centralized location. Have that kind of link back to the network, which seems pretty cool to me too. So that was a little bit of a relief because, yeah, Matt, you and I have talked about this. Just put a plug close to that wall and then put another plug. And yeah, I could do that, but I don't need a smart plug there or whatever. I really don't. I didn't like it having to be forced centralized. Now it still is. But the option makes me feel like, okay, so if I need to start over.
That's the same kind of thing as your HomeKit hub, though, right?
No. Wi-Fi is, I mean, we talked about this. A good Wi-Fi network is rule of thumb you have to have. And people who skimp on Wi-Fi are going to have a bad time with Wi-Fi smart devices, too. So I'm assuming a good Wi-Fi network.
Yeah.
But every day that I live with Ubiquity, I am thinking I'm less and less in a good state.
You know what they say with assumptions, though, right?
What'd you call yourself?
Right? Both of us, Yeti, both of us.
So while we were on this call, Amazon, I love Amazon, delivered me some packages, and I just ordered a 4-pack of ESP32 little controllers.
Oh,
and
the ESP32 boards are great. WLED.
They were so cheap. There's 4 of them that it was $32 shipped, and they've got the built-in camera. Less than $8 each, and I'm gonna run Room Assistant on those, or something. Yes. So
what is
words
this?
of the wise. Fair warning, Mr. Lamet.
Yes.
Prepare yourself for frustration and not quite there.
Okay.
I did this with Raspberry Pi Raspberry Pi Zero Ws.
Okay.
And first of all, forget about running them on Wi-Fi. Because what does Room Assistant use to detect presence? Bluetooth, low energy, right?
Is that what you're doing with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
What frequency does Bluetooth run on?
2.4.
Right. Okay. So what frequency does the Wi-Fi on those guys run on?
2.4.
Yeah.
5 gig.
So that radio gets uber busy and will be laggy and sloppy. Now, I don't know if the ESP32s might do 5 gigahertz. I don't know. They change all the time, right? If you're able to do dual radios, then what I just said goes away. At the same time, I had Room Assistance, and there is depending on what you want it to do. I wanted it if I walked into my bedroom with my iPhone or my watch. I wanted it to be like, oh, it's dark out. I'm going to turn on these lamps.
Yep.
Or he must be coming to bed, so I'm going to do this. And you don't want it to be too quick, because if I walk by my bedroom door in the hallway to the office and it sees me, then I don't want it to necessarily, but at the same time, I don't want to say, wait until you've seen me for 6 seconds, because then I'm walking in the dark for 10 seconds. So you're going to play that game, and that is if it's completely I'm telling you, I've done this, and I wish you all the best.
So, I mean, that sounds complicated. I did that with the motion sensors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I walk into a room and the lights turn on because there's motion.
The downside to that, though, is when my dog walks into the room versus me walking into the room, I don't want my dog to get greeted with the lights coming on and blinds rolling up, and
he doesn't want his dog getting spoiled.
The echo
right? He doesn't want to go to the food bowl and have it come out automatically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I do love motion sensors. There's absolutely a use case for it, and
I haven't found a good one that doesn't look like it's too big. They're too. First of all, forget about power. It needs to be battery. And it can't be something I replace every 3 months, because my piece of garbage August smart lock already occupies that place in my heart.
Oh, come on, man! You gotta get the good stuff. The Schlag smart lock or the bee's knees.
Dude. So the motion sensors, they need to be battery powered, and they just need to be somewhat inconspicuous. And I find that 3 inches by they just seem big to me.
They aren't that big though. I've got a
No,
bunch of them.
no, I
and
know.
They spray paint brown really great to match my walls, and
Yeah, I don't know. It's funny with my daughter being born 4.5 months ago. I've had to readjust a lot of my automations. Like the normal bedtime ain't the normal bedtime anymore. My wife goes down with her like at 6:30 in the evening and tries to get her down for the night, and maybe that works by 7:30. Maybe it doesn't. So all of those routines have just been. I've done a lot of disabling in Node-RED. It makes me sad. But overall, I've got those little 4-way Z-Wave buttons where it's next to the changing table, and I open up a PP diaper and I press a button and it records the diaper change.
You're recording stuff like that, data.
Yeah. Or I say, hey, SIRI, turn on the feeding switch, and it starts a timer. And then when I'm done, I bring up the app and I say stop, and I put the amount she drank in. I can track all of that.
Nice.
Pretty cool. That's pretty cool. That's called Baby Buddy. Yeah, but Kaz, you might need to know about that maybe soon, right?
No. I've had my Z-Wave deadbolts. What did I say? Schlag.
Schlag.
For a year, installed for a year, and going on 14, 15 months now, and I'm at 86% on my 4 AA batteries.
What?
My deadbolts have been installed for 13 months, 14 months.
You can open it wirelessly?
And I'm sitting here looking at 86% battery life.
Z-Wave, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got the same ones.
My ass.
I've got 2 of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
That thing can turn and open your deadbolt?
Uh-huh.
I've only changed the batteries in mine one time.
Uh-huh. And they look good.
Yeah. Yes. The August is the one with the big wart on the back end, right?
Only on the inside.
Yeah.
You can use whatever bolt you want.
Yeah. It looks like a
It's
little
a giant
stubby cans of soda sticking from the wall.
The look doesn't bother me at all.
That's the first I've heard that from you, Yeti.
I don't even notice it. And you can have nobody knows you have a smart lock from the outside. That's the thing. You have your own hardware there.
Yeah.
This just turns the bolt from the inside. The problem is Amazon, August is changing. They got bought by Yale. They're changing their cloud provider, and those little connect on the wall that hooks it up to Wi-Fi is bad. It went bad. 18 months. Oh, but you got to buy a new one. 1-year warranty. I get the new one, and it still doesn't work. So I'm like, all right. So now they've got to take it over to engineering.
Man. Yeah.
What?
The Z-Wave for the win.
Yeah. I know. In that case, right.
That was actually one of the things that I refused to have a IP-based door lock.
I don't blame you guys.
Yep.
I don't blame you guys. Yep. So here, the funny thing is the lock itself has Bluetooth, and therefore it talks to HomeKit hubs. Yes. Yeah. Only over Bluetooth though. So if you don't have that little connect on the wall, it will talk. Basically, it uses your HomePods or your Apple TV or your iPad as the gateway to BLE to Bluetooth, and HomeKit only. So from a security standpoint, it doesn't have an IP address. It's pretty secure, right? Or you use the August app itself. The problem is Home Assistant doesn't have visibility into that, right? Home Assistant can present HomeKit devices, but it can't be. It's not a HomeKit hub. It can be, but it can't participate in that. Hey, I'm sorry. It doesn't have Bluetooth presence. Right? It can't say, hey, HomePod, trigger that Bluetooth operation on that lock that you can see. But me, Home Assistant, I can't see it physically. So that's why the Connect, it turns it into an IP device, and away you go. And I'm here hitting my head against the wall, and I'm up and down August. And, hey, so can you try repairing it again for the 76th time? One more time? Yeah, no.
I am surprised at how easy my Z-Wave stuff has been. And how much it just works.
All right, dangle that in front of me.
Yep, it just works. And because I was looking at power, my motion sensors are all still listing 100% battery.
I have a couple of EcoLink is the brand, I think, and I have a couple of gate sensors, and they have that CR123A, yeah, which seems to be the hotness in lithium battery now. But it goes outside of my gate. And that thing is like 98%.
Temperature has a thing to do with that, but
my struggle with that is I have to basically buy a hood for it. I haven't done it yet because I tried taking a piece of like packing tape to prevent the moisture from getting in. and it works for a while until it doesn't, kind of thing.
Yeti, you bought a 3D printer. No, I stand corrected. You bought two 3D printers. I bet you could figure something out.
Chris, and that's the thing now that, to be honest with you, had never even thought about it because I'm still not in that default mindset.
Wait,
yet.
I can print a thing for that one?
Yeah.
I'm going to print it now.
Yeah.
Yep.
Problem solved.
All right. Well, Kris, I know we're pushing up against a time limit here, but really appreciate you coming on, and I hope we can make this more of a regular thing here. And
I'd love it.
Hopefully, Coz and I don't harass you to the point where you stop answering our calls.
No, I love when you guys reach out. Honestly, it's super fun. That is why I came to NetApp is so that I could continue working with folks like yourselves. So yeah, please do.
We have a mutual customer, of course, a very important customer, very deep into the NetApp ecosystem, has them deployed all over North America, and we had an issue with auto support not communicating, and maybe it was a firewall issue, maybe it was a settings issue, maybe it was all this. Kris was absolutely instrumental, absolutely great at making sure that he/NetApp were very close to the customer, making sure they felt like they weren't sent into the support rabbit hole that so many companies can kick you off into, and you get lost and you get frustrated. Kris was instrumental in making sure that situation was seen through to its conclusion, successful. So I want to thank you for that on behalf of me and our mutual customer, Kris.
Absolutely. Yeah, anything I can do to help.
Awesome, man. We love that. All right, Coz, what do you think?
I think that was a good one. Let's good job.
Next time, let's go for 2 beers.
Maybe. I ran out halfway through. I should
have. That's okay. No one likes a quitter.
No.
Well, if you've got anything you want to talk about, any questions you want us to discuss, any topics, definitely hit us at podcast@ivoxy.com. Find us on the LinkedIn, on the tubes, on Spotify, iTunes, whichever you prefer. Thanks again for listening to Data Center Therapy, y'all. Take care.